This episode is one of my favorites. I had the most fun conversation with Shelly Leer, and she does something that no other guest has done that I've talked to. So she has a very unique niche. That's what it's called in the business world, niche. But she is, you remember the show Home Improvement with Tim Allen? Tool Tim or something was his name. Well, she's kind of like that. She is the female version of Tim Allen, but she is on Instagram if you want to look her up as HomeRoom Shop. And if you're my age, remember the days where, and she talks about this, is like all the boys in middle school, they got to make things. They got to go to it wasn't called homeroom because homeroom was something different, but they got to go and make things and we went to home economics, which, I would have rather been in the other room with the boys making things. That's just, it was my personality. So I really connected with her because I'm kind of like somebody who likes to make things, but I haven't taken the time to do that for a long time. I don't put in the time and effort when it gives you such pleasure and it gives you such rewards when you make something with your own hands. And then it's just like, I did that. And that's what she does. She helps people do DIY projects. She comes from an upholstery background. So it started out where she was an upholsterer, and then she helped people do their own upholstery. And now she has in-person workshops and she has online as well, where she helps people. But she's a delight to talk to. And she's older than me, and she looks great. And she's so, I think, just loving what you do, being passionate about what you're working on and contributing to the world in a positive and healthy way is just like, that's keeps you young, it keeps you vital, keeps you happy. And so she just was a delight. And so let's get to the interview now so you can meet Shelly. Welcome to another episode of Not Your Average Lives. And today I have with me Shelly Leer. And Shelly, I am very excited to have her on. And she is, and I say I'm always excited about my guests because I love my guests, but she has a niche that is so different than anybody I've talked to in my year and a half of doing this podcast. And she teaches women how to use power tools. And that excites me because I have a DIY person inside of me that is suppressed right now. So, and I used to be a tomboy. I don't know if that comes from my tomboyishness. We have to talk about that, Shelly, to see if because we were doing some conversing before I hit record, and it sounds like anyone can use power tools. So I just want to welcome you to the show. I'm so excited for you to be here.
Thank you, Lori. I'm so excited to be on. Thank you so much.
Yes. So she's going to talk about this, and I'm sure we're going to get into a lot of stuff because she's got a very powerful backstory, and she's going to share her age and the points at which she had, kind of these Mack truck, as I call them, moments where something that happened in her life changed the trajectory. And I love that she's continuing to evolve as a person, even at her age. And so, where do you want to start? Why don't we just start by you sharing what you do right now? Okay. And I'd love to know your skill set, because what you studied, because I think what you studied and what you do now, it's kind of interesting because you were a legal aid or something too, right?
I was a paralegal. Well,
yeah.
So in college, I majored in design and textiles. And I did a 180 and went to paralegal school in Philadelphia. So I came back to Indianapolis and worked for a huge law firm in their litigation section until I got married and started having kids. And then I stayed home. And so that was sort of the impetus for me to start a business. And I had always been, I don't know if the word crafty is the right word to use, but I'd always been okay working with my hands and making things. So I had a neighbor who was starting an upholstery business in her garage, and her line was, I have expensive taste. My husband doesn't agree with that, so I need to work and make enough money. I can go buy what I want to buy. So I would go over when my kids were in bed and help her tear furniture down, and we had such a good time. So this is a roundabout way of telling you about my what I studied. So
But yeah,
I went
before
and
we go there, like what made you do the paralegal? Was it more
oh,
like
okay.
money driven? Because like to me, the universe like gave you this gift of this neighbor because that's really seems to me like to be what your
Right.
first love was.
Well, that's good. So my brother is an attorney, and he was telling me I should go to law school. And I was saying, I just don't think that's the thing to do. And at the time, a paralegal was a new paraprofession. So they were pushing it. I mean, there were people coming around trying to recruit. So I found out about a school in Philadelphia, and I just took off and did that. And actually, the reason why was I was I was doing my student teaching, and I did not like it. And it
Yes,
was
I
in
did that too. I was going to be a teacher and I didn't like this. Yeah, it's like not for me. It's funny. I teach adults now and so do you,
I
but
know,
yeah, it's a different, it's just like, I think we were meant to be teachers, but just not of, it was the
not
age group.
junior,
Yeah,
not junior high and high school.
right. Seventh
So
grade English. That was not fun.
yeah, so that's how I ended up from being a paralegal and then getting back creative, really my creative nature.
Yes.
So
Love that.
I I'm 60 I'm 65. I just turned 65, and
And she looks
I'm doing
amazing.
this
If you go to
since,
YouTube and watch this video, she looks
oh
amazing.
goodness, thank you.
Yes.
No, that's because I'm sitting
Yeah.
next. Um,
And she's
I
single. She's single.
oh yeah. Does anybody
Although
have any?
I think most of my listeners are women. So,
That's true, but they might have a brother. Okay. Um, anyway, I started a little custom upholstery business so I could stay at home with my 3 kids. That's how I got launched,
yeah. And
and
I
I
will
did
have
that.
you know, I have recovered my dining room chairs.
Oh, good.
Such an
That's
easy
good. That,
little project. All you need is a staple gun and some fabric. Yeah.
and some technique and some
Okay.
special technique. Yep.
Okay. But that's an easy first like starter project, right? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. It really is.
And it
So
makes you feel so good. So I think for you as a teacher teaching this, you probably like when somebody does something that they've never done before, it gives them just this new sense of confidence.
you have no idea. Not only do they have a great boost, but when I sit back and watch what they've done, I'm thrilled. I'm more thrilled now than when I was covering stuff. I'm like, can you believe you did that? And they walk out and they're just thrilled. So that's kind of why I do what I do. I like to see, it's a transformation in a short period of time, and they see how they can do something they didn't think they could do. And I'm not kidding you. It's fabulous.
Yeah. And I saw a photo, I think it was on Instagram because you go by HomeRoom on Instagram.
Homeroom shop. Yeah.
HomeRoom shop. Yeah. And you are like building something like, so, you don't just do upholstery of like just cover stuff, like you build stuff and then cover it. Right.
Well, right. So for so many years, in upholstery, you have to spend a lot of time learning the skill. And so, okay, I did all that. And then I started teaching it. And then it was like, now I want to start building and showing people how to build benches or ottomans and then take them to the next step.
Sign me up.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I said to Shelly when before we recorded is, there's a form of meditation to projects. Like I was just reading in my abundance book about, she likes to garden and there's a meditative, you get into a meditative state when you're out gardening and you're in nature. But I found like the times that I was doing like home projects, like sewing projects or like recovering, you're like really with yourself and your thought. And being such a busy person, I never stopped. Like I was always working on the next thing on my to-do list. And that really makes you kind of stop. And it's not just the project that you finish, but it's the time you spent and invested and have and really thinking about things that you didn't think about when you're so busy, you're suppressing all those things.
But
So
you're
yeah.
absolutely right. And so what is that? It's called flow. You get in that flow of,
Yes.
you kind of lose track of time.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's supposed to be the most satisfying human time that you can spend is in flow.
So do you
So
help people like come up with ideas for projects, or do you have like, okay, we're going to do this thing together and, everybody's going to do their own
it kind
version
of
of it?
works out. It works out both ways. So I
Mhm.
have a boot camp, which is a 3-day class, and I have parameters on what kind of chair they can bring in. So I have to know that I can move everybody along at the same rate, pretty much.
Mhm. Yeah.
There have been times when I kind of have free studio time, and they can bring in something specific, but I don't have so many students, so I can work on them a little bit one-on-one. And then on other classes, like if they do, I have this thing called a spool ottoman class. I already have the frames built and the steps. In a class
Oh,
situation, you've got to kind of have it set. And I actually think students like it to be set. And if they want to do something very individual, I'm open for them to contact me and I'll work with them
yeah.
one-on-one or two-on-one.
Yeah. And everybody needs an ottoman. Ottomans
Well,
are great at the foot of the bed for a dog to jump up on. They're also like used as coffee tables. They're used as coffee tables and
yeah.
just put a tray on them. So good. So I'm trying to talk Shelly into, I think she's going online. I'm not sure how much she's online yet. She does a lot of
I'm
in-person stuff, but
No,
you're on.
I've been on. I started online courses in 2013. I
Oh,
made them.
okay. Okay.
I made
Good.
them before there was any platform. I just patched it together, and I'm still
Oh,
selling some of those classes.
oh, okay. Well, definitely we'll
Yeah.
put the links in the show notes. But yeah, I thought you were mostly like offline, but you're
Both.
online too. Oh,
Both.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think there, so many people that follow me would be interested in doing a DIY project. So cool. So cool.
It's. I don't know. You know what? I feel like I'm like out here sort of waving this banner, but that feeling you get when you've done it yourself is just. I mean, it just boosts you for the whole day.
Yeah. Are you on YouTube too?
I have a few things on YouTube, and that's something on my to-do list to post more videos up there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So yeah, let's go back because I really like everybody's stories about how they got to where they are because you didn't start where you are now. So tell me, and she told me because I have people fill out a form and I ask what kind of transformation they've had because that's what I speak to because I think that's the most inspiring to see. Yeah, I want whoever's listening to be able to see themselves and the potential in themselves through my guests. And so you've just had some heartbreaking stories and you said you had two. One was at 40 and the other. So can you walk through those and just
I
kind of.
will, and I don't want it to sound like I'm like for me or anything because I have gotten through it. But when I was 40, my beloved nephew he was 26 and he was killed in a very fluke accident. He was playing basketball in a YMCA, and a lady on the road outside had some sort of a little seizure, and she went off the road, and he had just sat down to take a break at the lunch or over the lunch hour he was playing, and she plowed through the back door and he was killed.
Oh,
And that turned my world inside out. And I had
oh,
3 kids at the time and was married at the time. And I did some really deep soul searching. I mean, I was in agony. And I
and were your kids about his age too at the
no,
time?
no,
Oh,
my
okay.
kids were sort of the younger set.
Mm-hmm.
Like my daughter was in junior high at that time, and he was 26 at the time.
Okay.
So my brother is 10 years older than I
Okay.
am. So these were his kids, a little bit older.
Did it
So
make you think like when I hear a story like that and I think that he couldn't have done anything different. I mean, it's not like he couldn't have done anything different. It's like what is why does that happen? Like is that supposed to there's a
I
reason
think
in
I
the
can't
larger
I
universe you think, but it's like oh, such a loss.
well, I think my personally, I had to just dig so deep, and the way I came to terms with it was, I don't know that there was a reason that it happened. It just happened. But now, what can we do to turn it into something better? or
Mm, yeah.
something beneficial. And so after that, and actually it did that really turned me around, because I decided to I presented this to my brother. Let's do a 3-on-3 charity basketball tournament. And it turned out that we did that for 4 or 5 years, and it was huge. And the money we made went to the YMCA after school projects for kids who couldn't afford after school
Aw.
sports.
Mm.
So for my brother, now I will tell you, I feel like I was a little codependent in here. Like, I was in agony, but I couldn't stand to see my brother in such agony. And so I was doing everything I could. And, whether I, that mattered or not, I don't know. But having that tournament for him to focus on, and his wife, she was in there too, helping out. It did lift our family up and out of that pit, and it was a
Yeah.
pit of despair.
Yeah. And
And
what you did is you, in a way, paid it forward, because think of the people, the children that got the YMCA and got, met a mentor, or something happened through that experience that changed their life,
right.
And so if you look at it that way, it's easier to digest, but it's
Yes,
still hard. Yeah. Yeah.
it is, and nothing takes away that little dull pain in there. But you're right. When you can look at some of the good stuff, it does lift you up little by little.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it was a good thing that we did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was that. Okay, so that was at 40.
Yeah.
So my kids.
So did you do some soul searching about like what how long do I have to live? You did, like, sometimes when somebody dies that you like, oh, what am I doing with my time? Did you go through that at
So
all?
what I don't know that I specifically thought that, but what I thought was everybody can die like that. I was like in this despair, like it could be anything. And I got a little hyper protective of my own kids.
Yes.
And I just thought it's just a toss up. And that's not a good way to live. So anyway, I really wrestled with that for, I don't know, maybe 2 years. I really came out of that, and I thought, serving, like that whole basketball tournament thing gave me such a sense of satisfaction and joy. So then I thought, okay, I'm gonna lead a life to serve others or to help others. And so that kind of changed my core beliefs about how important that was.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet. And it's a little stepping stone.
It was.
Yeah.
It really was. And you
Mm-hmm.
know what else? I will tell you, my own kids saw that and participated, and they, as adults now, have a strong belief in that same thing. And so at the time, I didn't know what I was doing, but I kind of was just going through the motions, and at least they saw that.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you were, we don't realize how much we model,
Right.
what, we always think, oh, like when we think modeling of, oh, when I am behaving well and I'm doing the right things. But when you're going through a grief process like that, they're watching. And so
Yeah.
the fact that you pulled yourself out and did that, yeah, I'm sure that made a huge impact on them. Yeah.
I don't, yeah. Well, anyway, I think it did, but you never know. I don't know that they would pinpoint that. Maybe at my funeral, they'll say that, like,
Yeah.
oh, my mom did this. But
Yeah.
so anyway, that was the 40s, and it's been a rocky ride since.
Yeah.
But actually, my business. So I had my business at the time, and that was that's a good segue talking about that, because as I changed, I turned to my ability to make things and create things. And at the time, I was creating for other people. And that was kind of like, actually, it was kind of like a meditation we were talking about. It was a solitude I needed to get reflective. And also, as women get older, a lot of them say I needed more time by myself. I mean, I really did change. I became the introvert I really am in my heart. And I needed that time. And I saw how that was my go-to thing, because I don't drink and I don't smoke and I don't chase boys and I don't, I don't have any other crutches except exercise and sugar and making stuff.
Yeah. 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 So you were talking about, so when you said you had this business,
Yes.
your husband, was also working, I'm sure.
Yes.
So was this business like a serious business, or is it more like a
Yes.
hobby, fun business?
No, it never was a hobby. I knew when I started it, right away, I hit the ground running, because if anybody's ever looking for an upholsterer, you know how hard it is to find them. And even though I was started out kind of, as a one-woman show, which I still am, I had people, and I was operating as a business from the get-go. And so it was a very small business, but I lived up in the suburbs, and all the parents and teachers of my kids' friends and all, they just, it was like, this worked. It worked for a long time.
Yeah, good. Okay. And so then your second transformation happened when? And there was actually kind of a double. The second one was kind of two things, right?
I got a lot of
Or
things.
multiple
I got a
things,
lot of things.
Yeah, yeah.
So starting in 2009, at the end of 2009, my brother, who was 3 years older than me, died of liver cancer, and we knew that he had hepatitis. I don't know what he had, but we had heard that he was in the clear, but he wasn't. And so he died. It wasn't suddenly, but it didn't drag out over a lot of years. But that was right after Christmas in 2009. And so that kind of took us down again. And he didn't.
So was he diagnosed and died like within a year? Because I know that sometimes.
Oh, yeah. It was, because he was not really healthy, but he thought he was going to be okay. And we thought he was going to be okay. And then he just took a bad turn, and that was it. And it was fairly short. It's probably like less than 6 months.
Yeah.
So anyway, so he died.
And so you said he was like 50, you were 52, or he was 50?
I was 50 and he was 53.
Wow.
Yeah. So
yeah, I was just actually on Facebook last night. It just made me think of this. And I saw a friend I worked with. We actually were also neighbors, and she posted RIP somebody that I also worked with. And I was like shocked. I like went to her Facebook page. She has kids that she died in May, and her son, who's the older of the two, just graduated from high school in June. And oh my gosh, I was like so heartbroken. And I was like, I did the math. She's like 53. That made me think of her because she's 9 years younger than me. And I was like, oh my gosh, it means like, yeah.
Well, I have a lot to say about going through multiple losses.
Yeah. But it's like, so when we were younger, we thought, oh, 53, that's a full life. No, like, we're just getting started.
It's so young. You're just getting started after you raise your kids.
Yes.
Right. So that was another, time to stop and figure things out again. And I don't know. I got to tell you, I didn't have all that long to grieve, because then in 2011, my brother Mark, who was he was 63 at the time, he had a heart attack and died suddenly, boom, on my son's birthday. And that threw me again for a loop, because so I had 3 older brothers and an older sister, and Mark was always the brother that took me places and took, he kind of made sure I was okay. I was the youngest. And gutted. I was gutted again. So,
and that sounds like that was just sudden, out of the blue, nowhere. Yeah.
Sudden.
Yeah.
So Lori, the thing is, and I would say to any of listeners, I've had more sudden deaths in my family. My dad died when I was 14, heart attack. And then my nephew killed suddenly. Matt died with cancer. Mark suddenly, more to come. And I never got to say goodbye to any of them, really, because Matt was in a coma when I got to visit him. So I never really got to say goodbye. And that was something I could have agonized about, but I really just decided I couldn't take that on with everything else. With the grief, I couldn't worry about that. It wasn't going to change anything.
Mm. Yeah.
And I don't know if I could, actually, I don't even know if I could have handled saying goodbye to anybody.
Yeah.
I'm so sensitive, I would probably have just fallen apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
It's tough. And then you said that's not all. So is there somebody else?
Okay, so Mark, that was my brother Mark, and he had 2 boys and a wife, and we're still really close with her. And then, okay, wait, so then 2011, it's like one thing after the other. That was in May, and then in October, my mom died, and she was 92 and lived a great life. And the great thing about that was the day before she died, she got a new pair of shoes. So she was out shopping, and so that was a good way to go.
Oh,
But
she
again,
like dropped dead shopping?
no,
Oh,
no, she was of a night. She happened to go out the day before in a pair of shoes.
got it. Okay. So she had her new pair of
So
shoes. She
that
just
was,
couldn't, she had
yeah.
her new pairs
So
of shoes.
that
She couldn't enjoy wearing them she only wore them with, yeah.
she couldn't enjoy wearing them. But the thing is, it was like she wasn't dragging out sick, or she did have
Right.
a little dementia, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
So that, okay,
Well, that's
so
great that like a 92-year-old's out buying shoes. Like I only hope
yeah,
that I still like am caring about how I look and like
I know.
still buying some Spanx when I'm 92.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Spanx are like the new girdle, right?
Yeah. Well, Spanx started out as girdles, but I have so many Spanx jeans, and yeah, and I have so many Spanx leggings. I just love them so much. Yeah.
Well, they're good for you too, to compress all that stuff.
Yeah. I just got 2 new pair. So
I know, I saw that
on sale.
Instagram.
It's like, yeah, they send me email all the time, and I'm like, delete. But this one said sale. And so I had to go look. And I recently bought a pair that I like that have pockets, because when I walk my dog, I like to stick my phone in my pocket. And I was like, it was a different color,
Oh, nice.
and it was on sale. And I'm like, sold. So
The old saying, I can't afford not to buy them.
that's right. That's right. My husband like try to hide it when so he doesn't see the package when it comes.
Yeah, I remember that.
Do you really need another pair of Spanx? It's like, no, but it makes me happy. So that's what it is. All right. So and then another major.
So then my mom died, and we did not have a service until that was in October. So then at Thanksgiving, everybody came together and we had a nice little service. And at that point, I'm kind of operating on, it was kind of like on autopilot, like just I hadn't really processed a lot of this stuff. So it's boom, boom, boom. And you can't make yourself process faster than you can process. And so
yeah, and you're probably like thinking, when's the next shoe gonna drop, right?
So if anything on this whole podcast, I lived in hypervigilance for like 8 years, 9 years, and it is not a good place to be at all.
Yeah. Yeah. My daughter almost died from, she had double pulmonary embolisms, the emboli. Yeah. And I ended up getting, that was just one like crisis, and not all the ones you had. And I started getting anxiety attacks. I think it was a combination of not being happy and where I was, and like, just what if I kept reliving it in my head. Like, what if she had died? What if I hadn't been there? What if this? What if that? So
the anxiety just was off the chart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I didn't really know it. I didn't know that that's what I was feeling, but like, you feel it in your body, and I was feeling it like in my throat, like constricted. And I look like a wreck. I look back on some of those photos, and I was just gimping through, really.
Mm.
But again, throughout all of that, I was still going back to creativity, which is what my crutch has been. And so let's see, what is that? That's at the end of 2011. Then I get a reprieve for a couple years. Thank goodness. And then in December of 2014, my sister, who was the oldest in the family, got a call. She lived in Minnesota. We got a call that she had gone into the hospital after a knee replacement, but she had had some other situation years before that sort of, with the knee replacement and blood thinner, kind of didn't work so well. And she died in her sleep. And so that was 2014, the end of the year. And then the icing on the cake was January 2015. I discovered, this gets juicy now. I discovered an email from some woman my husband worked with, and you can guess that was it. And
now, did she email you, or
no,
you just found it?
I found it. I don't know. Maybe he wanted me to find it, but
Mm.
I found this email from her to him, and it was so graphic, and I was stunned. Although I will say that throughout most of my marriage, he was very, very flirtatious. And I always kind of wondered, but I just never, ever thought that was something he would do. But looking back on it from where I am now, this was ongoing this is not an isolated incident.
So
But
he had multiple affairs, is what you
yes,
uncovered.
but he never copped to those. But when I look back on situations, and I think he kind of was telling me what was going on, and I didn't really get it. I had 3 little kids. I thought, okay, well, there's a whole bunch to go along with that. It was just, it took me down.
Yeah.
And so he was very remorseful and wanted to reconcile. So we said, and we went to therapy for a year and a half. And I realized that was something, he had other things he needed to deal with. And because of one incident in the therapist's office, and I said, all right, you need to go deal with some issues, and then we'll go to marriage therapy after that. But he stopped going, and I knew that this was not going to work. And I wish the therapist would have told me that. I wish she would have been honest and said, you guys are never going to make it. But
I think you need to figure that out on your own.
I agree. I agree. But I have heard of other people whose therapists say to them, you guys are not on this is not looking like it's going to work.
Yeah. Yeah. Or asking the right questions that would lead you there sooner. Yes.
Yeah. The right questions.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. I went to marriage therapy, a couple of times in my marriage that ended up ending after 25 years. But I remember on the second round that we went on, I really respected the therapist because on the first day, he said, this is not something that I want to continue. So, it's going to have a, resolution. So, we'll get to the bottom of it. In other words, I'm not just going to take your money and have you keep coming back. He was solution oriented. He wasn't.
I love that.
Yeah. So
yeah, I felt like by the time we found someone that my husband agreed to go to, which was a woman, wink, wink.
And now he's married to her.
No, he's not. But by the time we got to her, he's like, oh yeah, I like her a lot. She gets me. And now that I look at that, it's like, yeah, he was able to, to get her to believe his story. But anyway, there was something else about that. Oh, so what happened was that we went on 3 years, and I knew in my heart, it was one of those intuitive things. It's like, I know this is not going to work. We have to get out of this. And I didn't know how to do it. I mean, he said he was trying, but then, so that Christmas, that 2017, we had been out with our 2 sons playing in the snow, having so much fun, and came in, and out of the clear blue, you talk about a message coming to you. Out of clear blue, I said, hey, let me see your phone. And he went berserk, and he went nuts. And so that was sort of the end of it. And, I realized that it was done. So I said, it was like this, like, whew, and I said, I'm done. And I even like was a little bit relieved. I said, I'm done. I felt bad. My two sons were upstairs. I mean, they lived on their own. They were headed out the next day.
Hmm.
But I said, I am not going to live this lie anymore, because he had been messing
Yeah.
around. I don't know how he was messing around. I was done with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's clearly a long-term pattern there that would
Yes.
be likely hard to break. Yeah. We just finished watching the first season of Dirty John. Have you ever seen that?
Oh, I don't know if I've seen that.
So I didn't know anything about it. I'd heard people say it was good. Well, apparently it's like every season's a different story. So it's kind of like Fargo, the series Fargo. And
Yeah.
so I messaged my kids and they were like, oh yeah, it's based on a true story. It's based on a true story. Now, I don't think your ex is as bad as John, but this guy, oh my gosh. It's like, yeah,
Well,
yeah,
you know what? And then you become so, and I'm not the first person to do this. Then you read everything you can read to figure out what is with somebody who does that. And where I am now is I'm at the end of that. I'm at the end of that trying to figure it out, which I spent way too long trying to figure it out. And it's okay, I'm at that. Why am I letting him consume my time? Yeah, I'm the one that wanted the divorce, but you still, it's like being a person that could never do that to someone else. It was like I couldn't stop searching for the answers. And that is something, I had to look at like, why am I doing that?
yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure you said before we hit record, we were talking about this, and you said that you'd be fine being alone, the rest of your
Yes.
life. You're just not like you're looking for somebody. And I'm sure that like sticks with you too. It's like, well, what's wrong with my selection? What's wrong with that? Why didn't my intuition tell me this,
But
before?
you know what? It did. When I look back on it, there were times when I was questioning whether that was a good choice or not. And I pushed ahead. It was kind of willfulness. And yeah, I thought I was in love. I even still say to this day, I really loved him.
Mhm.
And I think I did. I loved him. He just didn't love himself. That's my
Yeah.
that's my
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He kept trying to fill an empty,
Yes.
internal, need.
Yeah.
So anyway, so now
Okay.
you're where you are. What have you learned from this? I mean, like so much in your
Oh,
life that,
so
what have
much.
you learned and what can you share with the listeners?
Well, I think this is a message that most everybody learns when they've come through. It's like you can get through so much. And I guess I am a strong person. I didn't believe myself to be a strong person. And I didn't believe that I could ride the bumps. I always tell my kids, it's like, how good are your shock absorbers? Because I just didn't believe I could do it. And I did come through, and I am so much of a more aware person than I was in that fog I was living in.
Mm.
I think that one of the big things, this is going to sound a little kooky, but I do not fear death. And it's not like it's not like I'm ready to go, but I don't have that fear or that grasp on, oh my God, if, this might happen or this might happen. It's just do the best to live it like you can live it. And I'm still not just in the moment. I mean, I'm a worrier, and I have anxiety, but I intellectually, I see where I needed to change. And even though, that situation kind of, at least that part of it was on him, I see a lot of things that were difficult about me too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, in terms of, you say you still have like, you still can be anxious and you can still be this and that, but, it sounds, the big difference to me where you are now, and this happened with me, is that you are now aware.
Yeah.
Before, you're going through life totally oblivious of how you were operating and how you felt and your feelings. And now you're in tune with them, and you know how to get out of it, and you have tools. Not necessarily power
That's
tools,
it.
but
There you go.
yeah, you have
Oh, she
tools. What?
led right in. You led
Yes.
right into that.
Yeah, that's so
It's
great.
tools. And I was going to say that it's like having those tools. And one of the things, like what you just said, is being aware. It's like I even noticed, even in the past couple weeks, sometimes when I either jump to a conclusion or whatever, I go, wait a minute, where's that coming from? And I didn't used to do that. I would just be up there in my head wrestling all the time. And now I'm able to step back a little bit. And again, I have a long way to go, but man, have I come a long way too.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, you're going to learn more lessons along the way. And it's great. It's great too, because you're a teacher. And that's how I feel as a teacher, is that everything that I learn, I think I love learning even more, because I know that everything I learn is something that I can regurgitate back. And,
Yeah.
we do it in different ways. And I love the way you use your whole business of building. I have a question on, well, first of all, this is a crazy question, but what is your favorite tool?
Oh, let's see. Well, you know what? I think my favorite tool is a jigsaw. I think
Ooh,
you can get a lot done with a jigsaw.
what
And
even is that? I think of a jigsaw
well,
puzzle, but
it's like a handheld scroll saw. So it just has a needle. I mean, a needle, and it rotate it back and forth, and you can cut curves. But
oh,
you can also
you have to
cut.
draw. Like, I'm thinking of a piece of
Yeah,
plywood, and you would
yeah,
draw a
yeah.
line of some sort or however you wanted it, and then you follow it with.
Right.
Ooh,
And
yeah.
it's not easy, but there are different blades that go on there that cut through different kinds of wood. But what I like about it is if you're afraid to use, and a lot of women are afraid to use a circular saw, that is
Oh
kind of
yeah.
scary, and a chop saw. But a jigsaw, you can, if you attach a jig or
Shield kind of thing.
well, you attach a board so you have a straight line to go down next to.
Oh, got it.
You can cut straight lines with the jigsaw, but you can also cut out curves with the
Yeah.
jigsaw.
Yeah.
So I
Also,
have
I
written.
think of a circular saw as like, I don't know. Maybe I've seen too many horror movies, but it's like,
Oh,
I could hurt myself with that. Whereas with the other one, you could still hurt yourself, but it's like, it's much more innocent looking. It's
well,
not as
I agree.
scary.
I
Yeah.
and so with my power tool class, I don't want to run that in person because the liability would be too much. And so, and I'm all about safety, but that's going to be an online course
Yeah.
and we start out with 4 tools, and then I teach everything about them, and then we make a bench at the end, and then that'll lead into another possible class. But I have a lot of women who have messaged me who say, I'm ready to go. I got my husband's tools. And one of the things is, and I don't know if you feel like this, but sometimes men like to tell you how to use the tools. And I almost say I want to do this for women, single women, but I don't want to really niche it down that much. But if you can do it by yourself on your terms, and for a woman, it's just completely different than
Mhm.
how men do it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. You probably need a lesson in your course that says how to talk to your husband about
Yeah.
staying
How
out
do
of your space when you're doing this.
wait, what about a chapter called how to respond to mansplaining or something like that?
That's right. Yes. Yes. Stay out of my space. Don't even look. When
Yeah.
I'm in here, it's an off limits type of
But
thing.
if it's their tools, they are not going to let you go.
So yeah, that's interesting. That is an interesting element of it. So yeah, I
But
love that.
okay, so you said you were a tomboy, and that was the way I was. I had 3
Mhm.
older brothers,
Yeah.
and the big thing was they got to take shop class, and I did not.
Yes. Isn't that terrible? We had home
Yes,
economics
yes,
and we had to
yeah,
sew a skirt and learn
yes,
how to like cook something,
yes,
which I
yep,
didn't want to do. Yeah. So, what I like to do, which is interesting, is I loved putting things together. So
yep,
I loved it when I got like a bicycle, like you had to put it together, or you
yeah,
got like honestly, in my family, when we would get stuff, I was the one who would put it together. My
yeah,
dad, like the Christmas tree. I remember when we first got our first artificial Christmas tree. I put it together, and I remember we had these the metal at the end had different colors on it, and so we like
yeah,
had to put it in the different holes. They weren't the artificial trees of today, and so every year that was my job, because I was the putter together. And so I think maybe that, like, I have this brain that I like to construct, but what I fell into is just a busy life. And I just was such a workaholic that I never, whenever we would get something and it had instructions, I was like, oh, I don't have time. I don't have time.
Yeah.
So I let it all be about time when, and that could have been meditative for me. I probably needed it. So, but like when you talk about like one of the projects I did in this house when we first moved in is there was a valance and I didn't like it. It was navy blue and I wanted a different color. So I went and picked out fabric. That's fun. Just the process of
Yeah.
picking out fabric is fun. And I created, and it was a very simple valance because what they had up there was just basically a piece of fabric that was clipped,
Yeah.
so it was super simple. So I went and found fabric and I went and found, I don't know if I think it was tape. I don't even think I sewed it because I don't even have a sewing machine anymore. And I just put together a valance and I love it. I look up there and I'm like, oh my gosh, you would never realize how simple that was and how different the room looks just because of this silly, stupid little valance. So just like little stuff like that is, it's rewarding and
Well,
it's almost permanent, because it's been there for 8 years.
but it
So,
sounds like you have a brain, kind of like I feel like I had that kind of brain. I like I like taking things apart and seeing how they work and putting them back together and maybe making changes. And so that was never encouraged for me as a girl to do anything
yeah.
like that.
Yeah. You
But
had brothers too. I didn't have any
yeah,
brothers. So I think that's interesting.
but
Yeah.
I think like you or anybody watching this, there are so many ways you can do stuff that are not like, if you looked at that balance and you're like, I could do that a different way. It's like, have at it. I mean, if you can innovate, that is so great. And that gives you that other big boost of satisfaction that you feel inside. And it's not just, oh, it feels so good to make something with your hands. It's an actual physiological, this neuroscientist says it's a spritz of feel good hormones
Mm-hmm.
that cover your brain, and it lifts you up. And it's actually, for mild depression, making things is one of the therapies.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also find too that like a lot of times the people's expectations are really, really low for women. So it's like when
Yeah.
I say I did something and it's like a man's job, I get a lot of satisfaction out of people saying, whoa, you did that? Oh, and it's like, it's just like the little valance when people say, and I was like, oh yeah, I made that. You did, and it's like,
Lauren, think about, okay, so I gotta get you on board here. Think about if you made your own, constructed a bench, and then you made your own cushion for it, and you have that in your house. People come in there and
I
they're like,
know I
that
made
is
that.
fabulous. And you're like, I made it.
Yeah. I think it's also something that my husband would enjoy doing. I think something like after he retires, I mean, he loves to golf, but I think it would be something that he would enjoy doing. And I think it's a great thing to do in your spare time. So maybe that's my hobby that I've never had is I need to build stuff.
Well, you know what? I think getting back to, people do create in all different ways. And I think you said you like to cook, right?
No, I don't like to cook.
Oh, you know,
No, I
I don't like to
don't like
cook
to cook.
either.
Like the
You're a
home,
gardener. You're a
no,
gardener.
I don't like to garden. My husband does work in the yard. I don't like
All
to do
right.
that. His dream is for me to work in the yard. I did that when my kids were younger. It's not something I really
Me
enjoy.
neither. I didn't take, I want to be a gardener, but I'm just not. Cooking's okay, but it's not that important to me. I want to make things that are cool and that I can sit back and look at for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think that having that kind of that go-to, I don't know. I talk to a lot of women and they say they have a lot of projects that they want to do. Like you said, time has taken a toll on them, and they're like, oh, I don't have time. I don't have space. I don't have this. I don't have that. But if you can just take an hour or two out and I don't know what it is about fiddling around with making things and making mistakes and correcting the mistakes. It's like a whole spectrum of solution, or creativity and solutions. And I think humans are born creators. I just think we are.
And problem solvers.
Yes.
Yeah. And I love, because I think sometimes people just don't know where to begin. And I love that you have this and I think just like with exercise, having something that you have to show up to and you're part of a thing.
Yeah.
It's accountability. You know you're going to get it done, right? So I love
You
that.
need people, you need some hand holding sometimes. There's
Yeah.
just no doubt about it.
Yeah. So tell me what you're working on now, and then we'll wrap up.
Okay. Oh, I'm gonna have to call you back and talk. We can talk all afternoon.
Yeah.
So right now I've taken a few upholstery jobs into my shop because I don't have a lot of people coming in person, but I have a 3-day boot camp that's coming up this weekend. And I just want to quickly tell you that, so the beauty of this boot camp, which is what got me going on this whole line of teaching and making, is that I would have 6 women come in, and they were coming from all across the country and some from Canada even. And they would bring a chair, a smallish chair. And so we would tear the chairs down and get to know each other. And so we spent the first part of the day talking. And you would be amazed at how many women are nervous and kind of afraid of being thrown into this new situation. And for a long time, I was even nervous. But then I realized I can make them feel comfortable. And so by Saturday, Friday we tear down, and they go get their fabric. By Saturday, they were chit-chatty. They were sharing their contact information. They always had found something in common. And by the end, I saw such a difference. And it's only 3 days. It's not like a life change, but I saw such a difference in their demeanor. And even sometimes one woman specifically said she had a shake and she was so stressed out at work. And by the 3rd day, she goes, "My shake is gone." And this isn't, like I said, this is not going to probably solve things for good. But if it was showing them that turning away from whatever they were focused on and trying something new and using your brain in a different way was refreshing, and it was helping them.
It was a stepping stone.
It was a stepping stone, and it helped them feel better, whatever they were dealing with.
Yeah.
And so this weekend I have a boot camp coming up, and I'm excited about that. And then other than that,
so this is one where people are coming and bringing something fun. Yeah. Oh, I'm post about it. I'm excited to see.
I will.
Yeah.
I will. Okay. So we do that. And then I usually bake some cookies because I have some really good cookie recipes. So we do that. We have afternoon coffee because I studied some upholstery in Wales one summer, and we all stopped at 3:00 and had tea, and it was like so much fun. So I integrated that. But anyway, then I'm working on my power tool class, and it's called Power Tool School for Women. And actually I came up, like, I'm getting this plan done because of listening to you and the whole James Wedmore promotion. And I thought, I can do this. And
well, you've got to do it. You've got to do it because you have such a gift to give to people. Yes.
Well, you were so inspirational because I thought, she's out there doing a podcast. I can do this.
Yes, you can. You can. Yeah. So I can't wait to see what you develop and put out in the world as you go forward and really put it out there, stop doing the little dabbling. And the in-person is great, but COVID showed us that, we can do so much offline or online, and you don't have to do the in-person, and you can still intermingle that because it sounds like a wonderful thing that you do. I was like, how can I have you come to one of my retreats? I'm going to start doing retreats.
Oh, I totally would do that.
Like maybe we can't build a chair, but maybe we can build a little, I don't know, something.
Well, we can build all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, well, thanks so much for coming on. It was a delight to have this opportunity to talk to you and get to know you better.
I love talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Not Your Average Lives podcast. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe on iTunes if you have an Apple device. You can find free resources and learn what else I have going on at the moment that might interest you on my website at notyouraverage.grandma.com. You can also find me on Instagram or Facebook at Not Your Average Grandma. If you liked this episode, it would make my heart so happy if you could leave me a 5-star rating. You can also add a review to let me know what you like about this podcast, which will help spread the word about it to others who need a little midlife inspiration. As always, be you, listen to your inner voice, and focus on reigniting that lost spark so you can start living your own, not your average life.